Hello friends, welcome back to Mundo. My name is Joanna. Did you know that there are hidden stories behind the beautiful buildings of Albarracin? In this video, I decided to follow a group of tourists with a local guide to discover the hidden tales behind the iconic buildings of this medieval Albarracin, Spain. The name Albarracin comes from the Arabic word Albanu Racin, meaning the city of the sons of Racin, in which in the 11th century they established themselves in this land and formed the Taifa of Albarracin. And I discovered that some were dramatic, some were romantic, some tragic, but absolutely authentic. And during their time, they formed different defensive systems. For example, the castle, the murallas or walls, and torres or towers to defend themselves from their enemies. Later, Albarracin was conquered by Pedro III of Aragon, and the ruling family, the House of the Azagra, was deposed. So stay with us to the end of this video as we explore the heart of Albarracin's famous houses, and together we'll uncover the hidden tales that have made Albarracin so remarkable and be declared a national patrimony and a UNESCO World Heritage. Together we'll follow a group of curious tourists guided by a local knowledgeable guide, unveiling the hidden tales that have shaped this remarkable town. And so get ready to be enthralled by the rich history and fascinating anecdotes that lie within these magnificent walls. Please join us. I hope you'll like it. The tour started at the Plaza Mayor, and our guide's name is Maria Pilar. The Plaza Mayor is the central square at the heart of the town. It dates back to the 13th century. It serves as the main market square, and here you'll find the mayor's office, banks, houses with beautiful balconies made of wood, all adapted to the architecture of the region. The upper part of the town hall, you'll find the emblem, where the patron of Albarracin, Santa Maria, appears together with the flag of Aragon and the European Union. At the left of the mayor's office is the corner balcony, where you'll get great views of the town. And from here, the guide explained to us different stories of the tower de Doña Blanca, the Cathedral of Albarracin, and the castle, which I've already explained to you. The tower of the Doña Blanca was built in the 13th century as a watchtower and one of the town's defensive systems. It is located inside the cemetery and was restored as a museum and cultural center. If you walk up to the top, you'll get beautiful views of the surroundings. The legend of the Doña Blanca. Doña Blanca was the youngest sister of the King Crown of Aragon. She was a princess of extraordinary beauty, so much that her brother's wife was jealous of her. So Doña Blanca was banished from her home by her jealous sister-in-law, the Queen of Aragon. And the Azagra family, the wealthy lords of Albarracin, took her on her way to the castle and gave her comfort during her exile. One day, while taking a walk, she disappeared and never to be seen again. Many believe she was taken prisoner and died many years later in the Torre de la Doña Blanca. The inhabitants of Albarracin say that every full moon during summer, At midnight, they see a figure of a woman who goes down to bath at the Guadalquivir River. They believe it is the spirit of Doña Blanca who wanders with grief through the city that saw her die. The Cathedral of Albarracin. The 16th century Cathedral of Salvador is Albarracin's most stunning monument. The cathedral was built on the remains of an old Romanesque temple which was damaged during the Reconquista. It was a period when Christians reclaimed territory from the Moors. It was finally completed in the 19th century. The Cathedral of Albarracin is a sublime masterpiece that whispers the tales of centuries gone by through its ancient stones. The Casa Azul or the Blue House. In the 18th century, this blue house belonged to the Navarro de Azuriaga family, one of the most powerful in the town. A young man from this family fell in love with a beautiful girl from Andalusia. She started a new life in Albarracin with her beloved husband, but her longing for her homeland in Andalusia was overwhelming. So her husband put all his efforts into making his beloved feel at home. He painted the house in blue and built an Andalusian patio to make her feel at home. El Rincón Abanico. This corner has been named after a traditional Spanish hand fan, and it's because of the way the interconnecting houses spread out, imitating the shape of a fan. This corner during the medieval times was a bustling meeting point for local residents and visitors. It was a very popular central corner, as it was the central gathering place for social activities such as markets, festivals, and various celebrations. La Portal de Molina and La Casa de la Julieta. Here you'll find the door of Molina, or best known as the access door, and the house of Julieta, which is the icon of the city, and both of them are the most photographed of the town. And who was Julieta? Julieta was the last that lived in this house. It was a friendly nickname because she was the last of the family of the Julianes. Upstairs this house were the living quarters, and downstairs were the stables during the medieval times. But nowadays, there are two guys from Albarracin who have rented this house and serves as a functioning resident workshop for artists. The murallas or walls. Here, the defensive system wall passes over the house of Julieta. They had built conductions on the walls so as to bring water to the town. And during wartime, the wall was used as a defensive system so that the people would throw things to their enemies over the wall. Next to the Portal de Molina, we find the house of Navarro de Azuriaga, one of the most important lineage of the time. A house of 4 floors and very well preserved. The door knocker had a symbol of a lizard, or called lagartos, which was a symbol of power during the medieval times, and the family's coat of arms on top of the entrance. La Iglesia de Santiago, or the Church of Santiago. Former times, they didn't have a bell to call the worshippers for service. However, the resourceful inhabitants came up with a clever alternative. They used a system called clappers known as cameras. When a significant event occurred or any announcement needed to be made, the cameras were struck rhythmically, creating a distinctive sound that would carry across the town. Many years later, the bell tower was fixed. The bell would ring at 6:30 and the mass would start at 7. The Cova House. The Cova house was built in the 16th century, and the owners of this house were believed to be very high-ranking citizens during the medieval times. However, one day a priest was murdered in the town, and this family was blamed for his death. And as a punishment, they were dishonored by removing the upper helmet part of the emblem of the family herald. And to cleanse this sin, a white cross was put on the wall. Well, it doesn't look white now. The houses of Albarracin. The houses of Albarracin attained their characteristics of red color through the use of a red pigment called terracotta. It's a type of clay commonly found in this region, which contains iron oxide that gives it a reddish hue. The Muslim women of Albarracin. The Muslim women in the streets used to cover themselves, but once at home, they could remove the veil. So when someone was calling at the door, they would peep through that opening without being seen. If it's someone they know, they would open it, but if not, they would retreat back to the house. La Ermita del Carmen, or the Chapel of Carmen. The Ermita del Carmen was built in the 13th century, possibly the oldest hermitage in the region. On the 15th July, the carving of the Virgin is taken by the women from the hermitage down to the Church of Santiago, where they celebrate a Mass on her honor. El Portal del Agua, or Water Portal. As Albarracin continued to grow, they had to extend part of the wall and they built the door which is known as the Agua Portal or Water Portal. This gate is known this way because its purpose was to have access to water, especially in the event of a siege during the medieval times. The House of Monterde and Antillo. With an emblem so big and with ornaments, already can tell you how important the family of Monterde and Antillo were without looking at the wooden eaves so decorated. And to add to that, the door has the symbol of the lagarto or lizard, which shows that they were nobles. The Episcopal Palace. The Episcopal Palace stands out as a magnificent architectural landmark in Albarracin. After the Islamic kingdom was removed, a bishop was appointed to Albarracin to oversee the town, and it is presently the diocesan museum. Much as it was destroyed during the Second World War, it was reconstructed again. The Cathedral of Albarracin. From the Cathedral of Albarracin, we had beautiful views of the walls built in the 10th century by the Arabs. These walls have been conserved so well. They were used for many years for defensive purposes against its enemies. As you go up the wall, there are several defensive towers, and the most famous is the Anador Tower from the 10th century. It seems like stepping into a medieval fairy tale surrounded by an impressive fortress that seems to be frozen in time. Going up here can be challenging, especially for those unaccustomed to uphill climbs, but the effort is worth it. Look at the views. So beautiful. Isn't this beautiful? Once you've made your way up that steep path to the top, you'll be rewarded with breathtaking views and a sense of awe. And it's worthwhile to walk along it and enjoy the beautiful views from the highest point. And to add to that, these walls were not only designed to protect its citizens, but also to safeguard livestock during times of siege, and to provide ample grazing land, just as you can see here. She finally told us about the ancient tradition called Los Mayos de Albarracin, which is celebrated during the first week of May, used as the way for the locals to welcome the arrival of springtime. According to the tradition, on the night of 30th April, a raffle was held that would serve to pair the single young men, the Mayos, with the girls, the Mayas. And once the lot was cast, the boys surrounded their loved ones, went to their partner's house, who, leaning out of a balcony, listened to his Mayos singing. These songs expressed love, happiness, and joy of springtime. The participants dressed in traditional costumes as they walked through the streets, singing Mayos and spreading the festive spirit. And nowadays, it is celebrated all over Spain. A big thank you to Maria Pilar from the Inspira Ibaracin guided tours, who knows the place very well and entertained us with a lot of interesting anecdotes and quite an amount of detailed history. We really enjoyed ourselves. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed just as I did. Please don't forget to support this channel to grow by subscribing, sharing with your friends, watching, and liking. Thank you and see you soon.